Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 28 of season 4. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Joining us in New York City, Mr. Alex Patakis, our producer. How's it going?
Good. How's it going, guys?
It's going. And manning the socials, once again from Baltimore, Mr. Danny Paletti. How's it going, Danny?
It's going is right. That's
It's
exactly what's going. It's going.
So normally, guys, we record this on a Monday because of some scheduling things. We're recording this podcast right after the 1-0 win over Sheffield United. And immediately after the game, Alex texted, "We have to talk about this." Yes, yes, we do. So Paul, just real quick, before we start getting into the lineup and everything, like typical Wolves playing down the competition, right?
I think lineup wise, it would have been a really tricky decision to change it after last week's performance because you would expect that team to go out there, regardless of shape, to beat a team like Sheffield United based on form, league position, and all of that. So you had to give that team that came out the chance. And I think initially it looked pretty bright. You know, that first 10, 12 minutes, it was like if they could score right now, it could really go on and be a comfortable win and look pretty good in doing it. But it was just as it every minute went on, it just gave you a feeling that it would become a little Wolvesy, which it certainly did.
It it certainly did. Got a little scare in warm up as well, Danny, when uh Hwang Hee Chan kind of pulled up and was pointing to like a little bit higher on the calf area. Did you think at that point when you started seeing those tweets come across that uh-oh, he's out?
Yeah, I was extremely concerned, not just for the team, but for my FPL team, which I brought him into. Um, no, I mean it's not that surprising. I feel like since he came back from the Asian Cup, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm seeing what I think I'm gonna see, but like he doesn't look quite as quick. He's never been the fastest player, but like his agility, I think, has not been there these last couple games. And I do wonder if he's still carrying something from that. And they're just having to play him. I know that in the post match, Gary O'Neill said that he's fine. There was no pain after it, and no injuries. But I don't know. I can't look at that performance. I saw some people saying that he was playing terribly, and I was like, I don't know. It looks like he's just playing injured.
Yeah. What do you think, Paul? Do you think he's carrying a knock around?
There's a distinct lack of sharpness, I think. And again, to begin with, he had that opportunity where he closed the defender down, went running over, slid in, and that got the crowd fired up and they were chanting. But that seemed pretty much the highlight. But even then, it was a case that it did come down to the creativity because even if he was in and around the box, I'd have been confident on a game like today he would have probably scored. But I think there was a couple of times, and even the announcers pointed to it where he wasn't quite gambling enough. He wasn't picking that right spot to be taken up when the ball was coming in.
So, Alex, you're a big FIFA guy like me. Um, I about halfway through the first half was going, this is a flick stick game. And you kind of know what I mean by saying it's a flick stick game. So it's when, you're playing the bottom team of the table or the league below,
Oh
and you
yeah.
go, I haven't figured out how to do these little tricks with the right flick switch, like, dribbling around up in the air
Yeah.
and, doing the spins and everything. And so I felt like that's what Wolves were doing through a lot of this game is they were just trying like really fancy passes. Oh, we're gonna loft it like this. Oh, we're gonna do like some back heels, blah blah. So basically in every opponent's game. But I was like, this is a flick stick game where you're just screwing around and then uh-oh, things are getting serious now.
Yeah. It was coming off in the first half, like Paul said. I mean, like early on, it looked pretty promising. So I didn't really have an issue with that. I thought it was, I guess, compared to other games where Wolves have the majority of possession, they did look more threatening, but a lot of that is just Sheffield United being really, really bad. Then it kind of transitioned into a period where they had a couple of counterattacking chances that they were never going to finish, Sheffield United, that is. And my like prevailing thought in that moment was like, this must be what it feels like for bigger teams to play us. Like we clearly know we're probably a better quality than them, but
Right.
they look really dangerous. The only difference is like James McAtee and Brewster countering as opposed to like Neto, Cunha, Huang, and there's a big drop off with that kind of quality. So, but it did, yeah. I mean, I was totally comfortable into the second half where it felt like we were playing with our food a little, but whatever. I'm just glad it's over. Great advertisement for sleeping in, honestly.
Yeah, I know. It had to be an early game too. I mean, look, at least we woke up and they won. So,
Yeah.
It
And
made no
and
damn sense anyway, because like the game ended and 30 minutes already passed in the Carabao Cup final, which is the whole reason they made it earlier anyway. So like what's the
yeah.
point? Either have it on Saturday in the afternoon or
Yeah.
doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, Danny, Alex brings up a good point. Do you think how we feel today is how teams like Man City and Chelsea kind of feel, or Spurs really feel going against us, where it's just kind of so frustrating to break down?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And I think I saw a lot of takes on online that are like, we always play down to our opponent, but I guess this is a good platform for me to say I don't think that there's any team that's really immune from that. I mean, we've seen
Mm-hmm.
even just the last month, Man City play down significantly. The difference is that they've got a $300 million squad and will still get through those games. And we got through it today. That's fine. But we've even outside of Man City, like we've seen Liverpool play down to opponents. We've seen Spurs play down to opponents. I wouldn't count our game against Spurs in that category. I thought we played very well, but
Mm-hmm.
but I just think that like even extremely good teams are not immune from playing down to their opponents, and it is a tricky thing to go up against a team that is also not performing the way that you expect them to. I mean, one of the weirder things about that game, I mean, we were just sitting there watching, especially the second half, but honestly, the whole game to a certain extent, kind of in disbelief because Sheffield were wasting a bit of time, which you'd expect, but they also weren't really like trying to get anything on the break. When something did break, that they would go for it, obviously. But it was like even in the second half, we were getting to like 75, 80 minutes, and they just weren't particularly pressing for an equalizer. So it's like I can imagine being a bit frustrated and even, confused at what to do.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So, like, again, they did get through it. So it sounds like we're complaining. I think going into this, any of us would have signed up for that because a lot of us were, joking about how it's really, really obvious that we would lose this. And this sounds a little bit like excuse making, but going back to the Huang thing, like, I also think we score, like, with a fully healthy squad. I don't think it's insane to say that maybe we win this game by more than 1-0 because there's clearly something going on with Huang. Like, and if he has that knock in warmups and Cunha is healthy, he's probably battling just to get into the first team anyway, Like
Yeah.
I don't this sounds insane. I hope he's dealing with something because if he is fully fit and that's the performance he put in,
Yeah.
that's really to not register a shot against this team is crazy. And I think, the Sarabia was really creative and there was a few moments where I'm like a premier level quality striker is turning that into a chance, and Huang just didn't do it today. So I don't know. He the way he looks as he's playing reminds me of like the way most of like working class America feels like the beginning of January when the holidays have worn off and like we're all going through the motions and we're answering emails and we're like doing our deliverables, but nobody's really like actually feeling this, right? Like I might be the only one who's still dealing with that, but I'll get back in the flow soon enough.
Into February.
Yeah.
Paul, the one real bright spot there in the first half was that goal by Sarabia on just a fantastic assist from Aitneri. Boy, the halftime show for NBC was really laying into Sheffield for that horrible defending on the header.
I think obviously they missed their man, but it was a pizza across just to put it in the danger zone. So that was his wrong foot. Only real bit of creativity we were showing. So just to have that flash, and at least Sarabia taking a gamble, and that's the type of position you've got to be picking up if you're one of those forward players. So to have him come in, gamble, great header, knock it in the direction it was going towards. It was perfect as a goal stud. So you just expecting more. That one piece of quality showed what we could do, but unfortunately, it was the one piece of quality for the whole game, really.
And speaking of Sarabia, Alex, there's a no stupid question about him.
Yeah, we got a fun one from Carl Bayless, who tweeted at the show at WLW Pod and says, I wasn't convinced by Sarabia when he first signed. Thought he might become another Geddes. He's really grown on me, and now I think he's great. Are there any examples of things you didn't think you would like at first, but now love?
My answer is soccer.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's extremely on brand.
because if you told college me that I would be waking up early on the weekends to watch an English soccer game, I would have told you to go shut the hell up.
To watch Wolves one, Sheffield
no
nil.
way ever. So yeah, it's soccer.
That's a great answer. Paul, what about you? Like, what's something that has grown on you?
Peanut butter jelly?
Cats.
Cats, you said?
Yeah.
Cats.
I was adamant that we were never having one. My wife's a big cat person. And then one summer's day, we had a big snake in the garage, like chasing after the rodents. And I don't know what snake it was, but it was big. And any snake to an Englishman is big, scary, and venomous. So she was like, you know what would keep the rodents away from even coming near the house? It was like, what was that? Be a cat. Okay, then you win. And it was having that cat by in those circumstances, thinking it was going to be a little bastard. And as soon as it came in, it just gravitated towards me. Do you know, when like pets, the pet that you hate just comes across, and now not through me, just through additions of the ladies in the house, we've got 4 of the little bastards. So
Oh my God.
Oh
Yeah.
man, rodents steer clear. No
That's
one's
right.
going near the LePage house.
And I
Yeah,
think I think if your daughter had her way, she would steal at least one of mine as well.
definitely.
on that point, found this out. I've lived in New York for 9 years, almost 10 years. Only ever had one mouse in one apartment. And what I found out when I had that, because we obviously freaked out, was that there are rental companies in New York where you can borrow a cat for like 24 to 48 hours, have them come to your home, and basically they just fix the problem. So they like function as exterminators without needing to really pay them a salary. So I'm with you on that, Paul. How about you, Danny? What's something that won you over?
I feel
Or
like
someone?
the classic answer is beer. You know,
Yeah.
like you have your first sip of beer if you're a teenager and you're like, how does anybody drink this? This is disgusting. I remember there was a party at my house, my parents' house, when I was growing up, and I set down my cup, probably like a red Solo cup or something, full of Coke or Pepsi or something, and picked up by accident my dad's beer, which was like something dark, like a stout or a porter or something, and just fully didn't notice the difference and took like a huge swing of it and did like an actual spit take. And then, go to college and it creeps up on you.
Yeah.
40
Suddenly
pounds
you're shotgunning beers at 5:30 in the morning before a West Brom game.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I would say mine is, yeah, I would have to go the other way. So this is no stupid question, and of course that's brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. It took me a really long time to
That's a good
thoroughly
answer.
enjoy drinking like dry red wines. Like
Love it.
and now it's like pretty much always would prefer that over most drinks. Like it depends on the social setting. Like sometimes you're out with the boys just crushing beers. It's like a little weird to order a wine at a sports bar, right? But every other time, like I'm preferring wine. And yeah. So Esfuerzo is a great outlet as well if you're looking to get further into wine. I promise it will enhance your appetite for that. So, good question from Carl. I like that none of us really went with a player or anything like that. We all just went like the completely opposite route.
As we always do. Well, other than the goal, the other real highlight of the game has to be the two Sheffield United players nearly getting sent off for headbutting and smacking each other. Which, Paul, have you ever seen VAR check out for violent contact to teammates?
I don't think so. It's crazy. It's would it be typical Wolves that would actually get a VAR decision going in our favour, but it's the result of the two opposition fighting. So it was bizarre, and I've seen it before. Going back a while, that players on the same team coming to blows and everything and getting sent off. But it's crazy. It's staggering that you can even do that, and then you put in risk by potentially getting sent off just because you're having an argument with your own teammate. It's crazy.
Of all the crimes that PGMOL have committed against our fan base, maybe the worst is not actually giving us a red card for Sheffield for two of their players fighting with each other.
Alex, do you think if the Sheffield player, if Sousa or Robinson does that to Aitnery, do you feel like they get sent off?
I think it's got to be the right player, and I don't know that Aitnery is the right player because I mean Neto probably.
Someone who's going to go down hard.
Yeah, I don't picture Aitnery going down. I think like delicate little Sarabia or dramatic Neto. Yes, certainly we know Kilman. No, so it really depends on the Wolves player in that scenario.
I texted my big brother, who's a high school soccer coach, with the video, and I said, what would you do if two of your players got sent off with that? And he goes, you might as well just give me the red card too. Take me off.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would have been glorious though, to see one of them get a red card against each other. That would have been great. Paul, when halftime came, did you think we'd see any lineup changes?
Not really. And I was probably hoping that it could have been one of those types of fixtures that, again, if we could have scored just before halftime to make it 2 or immediately out the gate and made it 2, you'd had a real ease of confidence that they'd close the game out. So it was just more of the same in the second half, with actually Sheffield United having a lot more of it. And when it comes to shape and formation and changes and things, I thought the commentary team were actually pretty spot on when they said about that it turned into Sheffield United having more of the play in the midfield, which, coming off the back of Lemina and Gomez last week, you'd think was staggering. So I think that was probably why Doyle was brought into it, to try and add an extra man and close it up that way. But that was really pretty much midway through that period of the second half. So it was just kind of, it was so, the writing was on the wall with that whole game and that whole fixture, and luckily the result. But those are the factors that were playing into it. But even that, there was that one time, it was in the second half early-ish, where they were attacking. Lemina did 2 like great tackles to come back for it, and then he spread that ball out wide, which was a brilliant ball. And it was just those, if that had turned into a goal, it'd have been a totally different story, and you'd be going on about how wonderful the play was, and it was a real high quality moment of a dour game. And that's what it was missing. It was all huff and puff, and we didn't really have any real creativity or anything in the final third to really put a show on.
What'd you think of the shape change when they brought in Doyle, Danny?
I mean, it wasn't that surprising to me, I guess, because if you watch Nori through the whole first half, he's basically playing as a midfielder anyway. He was popping up absolutely everywhere. So, I mean, it was more just actually putting a real midfielder in that position. So, I was perfectly fine with it, apart from the fact that, I saw some people suggesting that we start with three midfielders, and I didn't quite understand that idea because I mean I get it, like allowing someone like Doyle to go forward a bit more, but it just didn't seem necessary in this scenario. You're already letting Nori go wherever he wants. So yeah, it seemed fairly logical.
Paul?
It seemed like the classic case of not having that dynamic front man, and by that, it's a case of if Cunha was playing, there's a natural outlet, and it's not like a natural outlet where we're under the cosh and they're kicking the ball all the way upfield to try and have it stick. It's more the case that he could have dropped in more, picked the ball up from deeper, and retained that way, and that would have been respite for the back line. Whereas Wang battled, but 90% of the time he wasn't coming out on top against their back line. So it was one of those fixtures where you did generally miss that forward outlet.
Alex, do you think this second half performance is cause for concern with a couple big fixtures coming up?
I don't really think so. And the reason I say that is because there was a point in the second half where it honestly looked to me like Wolves. This was like a way to rest for Brighton without actually rotating players. Like there was a point where I was like, is the game stopped? Like there was a point where like I didn't have the volume on. I was watching it in a public space, and I'm like, did the referee blow the? Oh no, he didn't. So I think it was like very clear that while we would be hungry for a second goal and all of us wanted it, I think we were just content to get out of there. Like I find it really hard to believe that they will look anything like this against Brighton or even away at Newcastle, which is a difficult place to go, although they're defensively a mess. So I'm all good with it. Just glad it's over.
Speaking of potential second goal there, fair or good decision or bad decision when Sarabia let off play when Sousa was down with what looked like a hamstring? Because, keeper's out of the box could have been an easy goal for Sarabia. What do you think?
When it played it back as the replay about how it happened, he was just a split second sooner. He kind of indicated that that's what his intention was. So I think it was to kick it out of play, and it was just a bit of a scuff that it would have probably trickled out, but it wasn't a definitive, I'm kicking this ball out of play for the purpose of that reason. So I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt in how it came about. So yeah, really, you got to stick by it's not the letter of the law because it's not even in the law, but more the gentleman's agreement of that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. And then to wrap up this game, Paul, who was your man of the match?
That really swung. First half, it probably been Sarabia, and he seemed the only real creative outlet based on just time on the ball, willingness to get involved, and obviously popping up with the goal. And then as that half went on and even into the second half, and you could definitely tell the narrative of the commentators changing as well, and they were picking up about all the headed balls and clearances that Dawson was making. So it was probably a game for a defender in the end. So I'd be going either probably Semedo or Dawson, but I think the amount of work that Dawson got through, he gets it.
Danny, you agree, Dawson?
I'm actually going to go João Gomez. I think
Okay.
similar to Paul, I think a lot of the defensive players looked, did their jobs and a bit more. But I think I was impressed with, I thought João Gomez carried on a lot of the good things that he did against Spurs. Obviously a very different game. And, he's not going to light the world on fire when we're playing in that type of game. But I thought that, especially like his progressive passing after he'd win the ball back, which is a lot of what he impressed me in the Spurs game. He continued to do so. If we keep seeing that, then that's good signs.
Alex?
I think I would say Gomez as well. I agree with Danny. Apart from when, he tugged on the shirt of, I forget who it was, if it was Brewster right on the edge of the box, I got a little nervous. There were many times either in or around the penalty area, I thought that he was winning tackles that would normally have me nervous. And I think he's like earned our confidence to not be so worried about VAR coming into play or giving up a pen. So I think that's great. And, they mentioned it. I think Jim Beglin on the commentary mentioned it that, maybe a slightly different role in this game, maybe a little bit more withdrawn. And Lamina seemed like he was making a conscious effort to play a little bit more forward. Maybe that was, a slight tweak to how they normally play as a duo. So I think it made no difference, and he was still just every bit as good as he has been in the past few weeks.
All right. Well, guys, came away with the 1-0 win. Now it's time. This could be, Paul, one of the biggest weeks of the season. On Wednesday, we have the 5th round tie against Brighton in the FA Cup. That's going to be at 2:45 Eastern, 1:45 Central. And then followed on Saturday against Newcastle at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Newcastle's only 1 point behind us in the table. So, Paul, of those two games, which do you want to win? If you can only choose one.
Brighton.
Why?
Easy.
Because we'll draw against Newcastle, and that will actually be kind of a good result.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's talk about Brighton. How do you think the lineup will go for that contest based on the way Hwang was looking today and kind of knowing Brighton's style a little bit more?
I think it sets the narrative that he's just got to keep that same 11. I think that will benefit them in terms of consistency. It'll probably benefit them with the way that Brighton are going to set up and approach the game. But if they do, we're just looking for that creative spark in the final third. And if there's question marks over Wang, it's a case of the likes of Neto to have a bigger say in the game than he did today. Will he get more opportunity playing a team like Brighton versus a team like Sheffield United? Possibly. So I think he's got to go, if fitness allows, with that same starting lineup.
Because this will be the 3rd time playing Brighton, Danny, do you think maybe now would be a good time to try a 3-man midfield with Doyle, Gomez, and Lamina?
Yeah, potentially. I'm just sort of trying to think about, how much changes are they going to make? Probably not that many. They've got an extra day of rest too. Although they do, Billy Gilmore got a red card in their last game, so he'll be out. I don't know. Yeah, I'm tempted to just say it's the same lineup, with the exception. I assume Paul was alluding to Hwang there. If I'm right that Hwang is carrying a knock, I guess we could see something different, which would probably mean Bellegarde coming in for him, which I know is going to rile up a certain sector of the fan base who'd prefer Fraser to start as a striker. But I wouldn't see Gary O'Neill doing that. I don't know if I would choose it myself, but I definitely don't see Gary O'Neill choosing that.
Alex, do you think Brighton is also going to be going full strength for this?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really important. I mean, like they're what, a point above us in the table. Like I think that position that Wolves, Brighton, Newcastle are all kind of in right now. There's only so many European spots up for grabs, and I think all three now, maybe I think we could say this about Wolves, have serious ambition to snatch one of those spots. And for that reason, I think Brighton, they have no choice but to go all out in every competition in my mind, which I think benefits us that they're playing in more competitions. But yeah, I think they go for it.
Yeah, they are playing a quarterfinal, or excuse me, a round of 16 matchup against Roma in Europa League next week. So they've got a lot of fixtures coming up here. Paul, who do you think is going to be the unsung key man for Wolves against Brighton?
Ooh. That's a good question. Again, it's tricky in that it depends on who they start with, the shape they take up. And on our side, it's going to have to be someone that steps up and takes the game by the scruff of the neck. So, I'm going to say it's going to be Neto. I think we're going to see him in the spotlight again, and he's either gonna score or going to assist, and he'll have a good game.
Danny, you think that 4-0 is going to pop into anybody's head at any point during the match for the players? Obviously, for the fans, it will immediately, but
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a tough one. I never know what to think when there's such a short turnaround. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with Paul. I think Neto is gonna be key. And I also forgot that Matoma is probably a doubt. He didn't play in their last game because he's out with injury, but he's supposed to be on his way back soon. So who knows? That would actually be a big boost to us in a way. Because Semedo, as I've said, is an excellent 1v1 defender, but Matoma always seems to have his number. So
Paul, did you ever go to an FA Cup match at Molyneux that was this far into the tournament?
So, we had a pretty good run. I'm trying to think when it was. We we played Newcastle as a championship team, and they were in the Prem, and we beat them, and it was a Sunday afternoon, great atmosphere, like 3-2 to us, and it just had everything going about it. And then we did go on we did go on a pretty good run that season. I'm not sure far how deep we went in the end, but it was maybe this round or the one afterwards, maybe quarterfinals, I think it was.
What kind of atmosphere do you anticipate then for a Wednesday night game?
Yeah, I think this is where it's night and day compared to that Newcastle atmosphere, just because it's it's another game thrown into the mix. I think it really stinks that it is on a Wednesday, that even a Saturday you'd have got more about it, just adding that magic of the cup feel to it than happening on a Wednesday night. And then I think the pricing structure has come in for some complaints as well, which I think is probably fair, that you add in another game into the mix. I'd have rather them taking the prices down and pat the place out and get the atmosphere off the back of that, because it probably wouldn't come just as a standard game that's added to the schedule, even though you're in touching distance of going further into the competition.
Alex, if you were there, would you make it to work on time on Thursday?
Well, in my situation, if I were there, I would be, treating it as maybe something even bigger than those who are likely to go to many games this season would be treating it. I could say this as having attended one game at Molyneux, which was on a weeknight. There's no way in hell that I would make it to work on time or maybe at all the next day. I'm not one to drink myself sick normally. But let's just say the Friday morning train after a Thursday night game, I went to Molyneux, back to London, was very, very rough, and there was multiple trips to the bathroom on the train. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with a no on that one.
That's great. All right, guys, prediction time for this contest. Let's look at last week. Paul, you're on a roll. You got another 3 points with that big 1-0 win. Congratulations.
Thanks. I'll be in those European places before you know it now.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Just
The
like the
gap
team.
has definitely closed. All the rest of us got 1 point. So the guest spot's still in first with 21 points. I've got 19. Danny and Alex, 18. And then Paul, you're only 4 back now at 14, making a little bit of a charge. So Brighton, let's start with you, Danny. What do you have?
oh boy. It's funny. I feel like this Sheffield result was actually pretty good for Gary O'Neill's preparations, because he can go out there and say, "We all know that was bad. Let's work on some things." But for me as a fan, it's hard to think of us being creative again. But I think we'll be up for it, and I am hopeful of, God, do I want to say penalties? I can't do this to myself. Let's just go for something simple. 2-1 Wolves win, please.
2-1 Wolves win. Alex?
I like that 2-1 shout. I'm gonna get a little bit crazier. Still like a Wolves win. Open game, hopefully much more entertaining. I'll say 3-2 Wolves.
3-2 Wolves. Ooh. Okay. Paul, what are you gonna do for your Debbie Downer here?
I have got the bad feelings about this one. Just personal circumstances. I'm not going to be connected to the game a ton, maybe, and unless I come down with some type of illness that allows me to pull away, I'll miss the first half. So that's
There is
weighing on
that
the
violent
back of my mind.
diarrhea bug going on in the Northeast. Just telling you, Paul.
Oh, okay, yeah, I could pull that one off without too much trouble usually. So with all that said, I will be Debbie Downer, and I'm gonna go Wolves 1, Brighton 3.
Ooh.
Don't
Ooh.
do this to me.
Ouch.
And I really hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Paul going for the 7-1 Brighton aggregate at Molyneux this year. Oof. I think Wolves will score, and then I think Brighton will equalize late. And boys, it'll go to penalty shootout and go all the way to Jose Sa making the final kick for a Wolves
Oh my
1-1
God.
draw, win in PKs. What would that be? We're gonna say win in PKs 9-8.
Good Lord. I feel like penalties is actually the right guess, but I don't know
Yeah.
about that one.
You don't like 9-8?
Oh my God.
That's
I mean, I
probably
like
giving
it if-
too many goals there.
Like it if they come out on top, but that is the closest thing to actual torture, I think,
Mhm.
for any Wolves fan.
All right, then looking ahead, Wolves have Newcastle on Saturday on the road. Paul, how many English people are going to complain about the trip causing you to just laugh?
Yeah, a little. Yeah, that's a short trip across Texas for us sometimes, but
Yeah.
it is an absolute mission to get there. Just transport infrastructure. I've done it on the train in the past. Train's good just to get you're on there for like 4 or 5 hours just drinking. So that's good. And if you are able to make a weekend of it, so you're doing the trip the day before, staying over, it's a great city to go and visit and enjoy it that way. But yeah, it's not the shortest trip for us.
Paul, how popular would a Bucky's be if it was on the road to Newcastle?
If the bookies sell beer so immensely, because you'd get all of those 15 passenger vehicles stopping there and refueling not only gas but beers as well. So yeah, it would be pretty jam packed with Wolves fans, that's for sure.
And for our people over the pond who don't know what Bucky's is the largest truck stop chain in the country, and it's basically like you walk into well, they don't have Super Walmart either, do they, Paul?
No, and it's service stations back in the UK, so that's the
Okay.
terminology I
How would you
understand.
how would you describe Bucky's to somebody in England?
Going to another planet.
Other than, I guess you could say probably the most American nonsensical thing you could possibly think of.
Yeah, but based on size, you're going to another planet. Based on things you can buy in there, from beaver nuggets, that's gonna have people googling what they are, all the way through up to stuff for your hunting trip and feed and
Beach,
all
yeah.
manner of things. So yeah, if you forgot something on that trip, no matter what the trip is, Bucky's is your place to stop in.
Danny, Alex, have you been to Buc-ee's?
I have not been
Alex,
to a Buc-ee's.
oh, you gotta
I
go to
have.
Buc-ee's.
I have, and it blew my mind for the first time. I was on a work trip in Georgia, and somebody was like, "You got to go to Buc-ee's." And then I was driving from New York to South Florida, where my family is, and there's one Buc-ee's there, like in the Daytona area, that the line to like get into the gas station for the Buc-ee's backs up onto the highway exit. So I had to skip that one because I was in a rush. But it's insane. Someone once described it to me as like, I was like, well, when I was first learning what Buc-ee's is, I'm like, what is it? They're like, well, you can go and you can get really good, like 26 varieties of like different beef jerky that's like really like gourmet, homemade, whatever.
Fudge, yeah. And the reason I bring that up is because Newcastle to Wolverhampton is essentially like us, Paul and I driving to Dallas, and there's a Buc-ee's right dead in the middle, and that's like the destination. I mean, you see billboards 150 miles out. Get ready to use a clean bathroom. So, Paul, Newcastle has been in rough form lately. Do you think Wolves can take advantage of that?
I do. I think there's no better time to play them. I think based on their form and based on we're playing better away from home at the moment. So I'm going to go a resounding Newcastle 0, Wolves 2.
Oof.
Danny, they have a FA Cup tie on Tuesday, but they're playing Blackburn. Do you anticipate them just to make sure going full strength, or are they going to try and pull back some, thinking they can beat Blackburn with
I don't know.
all of their starters?
I think it's one of those. I mean, obviously, I haven't been paying as nearly as much attention to Newcastle as I have to Wolves, but it feels very much like one of those where it's hard to justify doing a lot of changes when your league form is so bad. And their league form, like they've been getting wins, but it's been very up and down. And it's just like, I don't know. I would if I'm a Newcastle fan, I'm not really hoping for a ton of changes because I'm like, let's just go out there, smash a team that's below us, get some mojo back, and bring that into the weekend. So I'd be surprised to see a very changed lineup on Tuesday, which hopefully would mean some more tired players to play against us on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's some of the goals they've given up, Alex. They gave up 4 to Luton Town, 2 to Nottingham Forest in a win, 2 to Bournemouth in a draw, and then 4 to Arsenal. Judging by that, what, Wolves 1 goal probably, right?
Well, I mean, look, it's still a difficult place to go and get a result, but Luton and Bournemouth have done so, which gives me confidence because I think I could say, as cautiously optimistic as we might be, Wolves are a much better side than both of those teams. So, like I just look at it as like if their last 4 results in the league were our last 4 results in the league, I would have no optimism going into this. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
So I feel okay about it. Yeah, I do.
Paul, you mentioned that you'd be happy with the draw.
Yeah, regardless of my prediction, I'd take a draw as well. I think win at home, pick up a point away from home. Still going to be a tricky place to go to. So you take a point definitely.
Yeah. And currently Wolves are sitting in 8th, Newcastle's in 9th. However, at the time of this recording, West Ham and Chelsea also still have a game in hand. West Ham with a win can move ahead of Wolves, but worst they can be is in 9th, so that's not too bad. Paul, what's your prediction for this one?
Sticking with that 2-0 Wolves.
2-0 Wolves. All right. Danny?
I think I go with Paul on this one. 2-0 sounds good.
2-0 Wolves. Okay. Alex?
I will go 1-0. Wolves. Sorry, that should be more clear.
2-0 Wolves. I am going to go a 3-3 draw. I choose violence.
Yeah.
It's going to be an inch. If my predictions are the case, there's going to be a lot of squeaky bums this week.
Yeah.
Whole Lot of Wolves is looking to expand its squad, so if you enjoy working in the creative capacity and share a passion for wolves and graphic design, you could be the perfect addition to our growing crew. If you're interested in learning more, drop us a note via email at hello@wholelotofwolves.com or reach us on X at WLWpod.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
Okay, Alex, it's that time.
That's right. No stupid questions. We got some good ones. Let's get to them. You could always tweet them at us at WLW Pod. We usually prompt you for them as well. So you can always respond to that or tweet at us at any time or email us hello@wholelotofwolves.com. So let's start with Dan Wilkes, who gets us via X. Growing up, who was your sporting hero and what would they offer this current Wolves team, assuming they're transformed into an EPL player?
I mean, for me, it was Michael Jordan. You know, he's super tall, so I don't know. It's very we're seeing with Big Sassy, 6'6", strikers, maybe not the best call. He's got the speed to be a winger, but I could also see him being a center back.
Whoa, really? Just because of
Yeah,
height?
just because of his height and athleticism. Yeah.
See, I would envision him as like a clinical finisher. Like, I guess Erling Haaland is probably like the closest thing to it, where like if he misses a chance, you're surprised,
Yeah.
Which people were getting on him for missing chances like recently. And I'm like, dude, the guy's still like scoring more goals than a lot of clubs. Like, come on.
He's better than Big Eared Nunez, that's for sure.
Oh God. Yeah. Paul, I guess, well, your sporting hero very likely was a Wolves player. I would assume.
I was gonna eliminate all previous players or even football players entirely growing up. But then I was thinking, well, if I start reeling off these random cricket players or rugby players, then most of our audience won't even have a clue there. So I will break it down to my growing up as an American. So we're going back like 13 years now. So I'll give you like a very early example of my fandom over here. And I will go with the Houston Texans, JJ Watt.
Oh,
And he will be the
goal.
Craig Dawson replacement at centre back.
Ooh.
Doesn't miss a header and is a goal threat as well.
Paul, do you think he could walk into the Burnley squad right now?
A play, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I like it. Danny.
Yeah, I grew up, in the land of Cal Ripken, and so it's possible that Kilman hasn't really had an injury layoff yet. He's played all the minutes that are available so far in the league, and I think in the other competitions too. So he's got a long way to go to beat Cal Ripken's consecutive games number, which is in the thousands or whatever. But on the soccer side, I grew up watching DC United. And I immediately thought of Marco Echeverri was like the star of the first years of DC United, where they won 3 trophies in the first 4 years. And he had many great talents, but one of them was to flick a ball up into a defender's hand while that defender was standing in the box and draw a penalty, which honestly, in this day and age of dodgy VAR decisions, would be a very useful talent to just be able to flick the ball up right into someone's hand.
Yeah. I I love that. Wolves need to have more penalties, by the way, because I still don't really know who our penalty taker is at this point. You can't judge, and Josh, I'm sorry. And at the time we didn't know what a terrible human being he was, but Brett Favre was my childhood hero growing up.
Yeah, I mean,
if we're talking strictly off of physical abilities, translating that, I see him as a true, midfielder, deep sitting midfielder who sprang ridiculous passes and threw balls that you see that and you're like, how on earth? Like, there's very few human beings on the planet who could make that pass successfully. And yeah, so that's
And then
probably what
and then
brings.
he's totally teabagging some player who's taking a flop on the field.
Yeah. And grit and similar to Cal Ripken, Danny's hero, also just like playing every match, not flopping, not milking injuries. Todd DeWitt, let's move on. I get uncomfortable talking about how much I love Brett Favre. Todd DeWitt writes in, and I love this question because it's one of the most endearing things about this Wolves team, I think. What are on the notes that Gary sends out with his subs? Is he sending the players words of affirmation, telling them to think about what they want for lunch, or asking if they're all caught up on the Golden Bachelor? It reminds me of just like passing notes in like middle school, like around the classroom. It's just absolutely brilliant. What do we think is on that?
This has been like a question ever since. I mean, I don't know how long people have been doing this particular thing. It feels fairly recent, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that like maybe it's been going on for a while, but it always seems so weird. I mean, who's going to be the first coach that reveals all, Gary O'Neill going on Monday Night Football and showing us practices? Forget that. Show us what you write on the notes,
Yeah, yeah. I think
So
the Wolves Foundation should have an auction, and they should auction off some of the notes, but you don't know what you're going to get, so you could be bidding like £1 million, and it just says like, "Don't concede." It's like
it'd be funny if they like didn't tell you what the game was that the note was from, and you had to try to figure it out.
That would be great.
So I think it's something to loosen the team up a little bit. And I go back to the San Francisco versus Cincinnati Super Bowl 23, when the 49ers are trailing. Joe Montana comes out on the field and they're waiting for like some big, like, okay, guys, we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And instead he looked at the team and goes, hey, isn't that John Candy over there in the crowd? Something to just loosen them up and like, okay, we're going to be fine. So I could see that. Him, Gary O'Neill sending something with some random UK figure in the crowd.
It's actually just a Garfield comic.
I get uncomfortable with the whole process. I'm fearful for the player receiving the note, thinking, well, what are you going to do with it now? Are you going to put it down a sock and that may be uncomfortable? Are you going to put it down the bottom of your shorts? Is it going to fall out and the opposition read it and get all our secrets? So I think they need to like start writing them on rice paper or something that you read it, then it gets eaten.
Well, I think one of the announcers said at one point, some of the players will eat the piece of paper.
Yeah.
I remember when one of the ones when Kilman was sticking his thing, they're like, well, there's been some players that have
I've even seen a player do it. It's not common, but I see it happen. It's so weird.
Yeah. I'll remember when John McClain, the newspaper reporter out here, ate the front page of the Houston Chronicle when the Texans didn't draft a quarterback #1. So it's possible.
Yeah.
Can we get Liam Keane to eat the cover of the Express and Star if we don't sign a #9 in the summer?
Oh, that's genius. That's genius.
All right, let's wrap up on this one. Chase Branch via X. Wolves players decide to start a band. Who's playing what? What do they sound like? Paul, thoughts?
I've been, ever since I saw this, I've been giving it a lot of thought, and basically because it came through pretty much during the middle of the game, so it was a nice distraction. So I was looking at the players receiving the ball and who could go where. So far I have got my drummer is the one and only Jose Sarr.
Yeah,
there's no other answer for drummer. Yeah, easy.
It looks like it every day of the week. My smooth operating bass player is Nelson Semedo.
Great answer.
Just see him bopping along with his bass going. My 80s styled aha type keyboard player is Pedro Neto.
All right.
My lead guitarist, this may be a little under the radar. He'll be that guy in the band that's really good but doesn't say a lot. My lead guitarist is Craig Dawson.
See, I thought Dawson would be on the bass. So, but I can definitely see guitar.
And this may come as a bit of a surprise the front man. But based on where he's come from, based on how popular of a music city it is, he
I
comes
know
from
where he's going.
he comes from Manchester.
Yeah.
He's following in the footsteps of Liam Gallagher. Our front man is the one and only Tommy Doyle.
Yeah.
So here would be another potential front man. Very popular music. He would take a little buying in from the rest of the team, but I think he could do it based on some videos we've seen. They seem to be impressionable to this man. Danny, do you know where I'm going?
No, I don't. I'm
It is He
excited for it,
Chan
though.
Huang singing
Okay.
some K-pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a good auxiliary question to this one is who can He-Chan draft into a boy band for
Well,
K-pop
Saw
out of this?
100%.
Saw's doing it, no question. Obviously.
Gomez will
Kilman's
do
doing
it, I
it.
think.
Kilman's doing it as the
Can you bully
tall,
Kilman into doing it?
yeah, the tall surly one. Yeah, at the back. Yeah.
Doherty.
Yeah.
I think Doherty would do it.
My God.
I love it. I love Tomato on the bass is a great shout, Paul.
Yeah.
I love that.
Tapping the bass.
Yep.
I agree with all of them. The only thing I'd switch, I think, is Doyle and Dawson. I'd just switch their positions. I see Doyle on lead guitar, and Dawson, there's something about when his hair gets ruffled, when it's, it's wet and it's late in the game. He's had a few headers and a few tussles. That just reminds me of like an 80s rocker. And it's like, as he gets sweatier, you're like, you're losing your hair right now, aren't you?
Yeah. Just
I really hope Craig Dawson doesn't listen to this show because he hates us right now.
Thanks to everyone for writing in with your no stupid questions. Each week it's brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines, 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. EsfuerzoWines.com is where you go to shop. Use the promo code Wolves and you'll get a 15% discount. Maybe you're a young person who hasn't acquired the taste for wine just yet. It's a great entry point to it, I would say, to sophisticate your palate. Wonderful stuff. So thanks to them for sponsoring us.
Big Tex Fest 2 on tour update, everybody. We have a venue secured for our live recording. So if you remember, it will be attached to the next NBC Fans Fest weekend, which is in Nashville. It's the weekend of Saturday, April the 6th, when we're down to play West Ham. So all we're waiting on now is just confirmation of when actually the game will take place, if it's the Saturday or the Sunday, kickoff time and everything. But regardless, immediately following, we'll be heading over to Acme Feed and Seed, which is right at the bottom of Broadway. We'll be on their second floor. It's a really superb venue in terms of a space and a setting right deep in the heart of Nashville. So we'll be doing our live recording immediately after the game. So we're a little over a month away from that weekend. So if you've been thinking about it, make those travel plans. We'd look to get it packed out with as many listeners as possible that are coming to Nashville for the Fan Fest weekend. It would be great to meet you in person. And that brings this week's show to an end. So we're going to be back early part of the following week. We're going to see if that progress in the FA Cup continues and then break down everything that happens on that away trip to Newcastle. So this week, everybody, power of the cup and all of that, we will go into it and we will say up the mighty Wolves.